This is Lake Effect from Milwaukee Public Radio. I'm Bonnie North. Thanks so much for joining us today. For as long as there have been wooden baseball bats, there have been broken bats. But it's only been in recent years that broken bats have become a safety issue after numerous incidents in which bat shards have injured players or fans. But the risks are declining thanks to a partnership between Major League Baseball and a Wisconsin unit of the U.S. Forest Service. Lake Effect's Mitch Teich explains.
The scene played out on a May evening at Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, Florida, with the Tampa Bay Rays' David Price pitching to Grady Sizemore of the Cleveland Indians.
And a broken bat, look out. The bat right back over Price. That ball fielded by Zobrist, and Zobrist throws out Sizemore. Wow, you talk about a couple close calls.
David Price was lucky. The head of the bat only grazed his head on its end-over-end trajectory towards center field. Bats have always broken, of course, but broken bats weren't a problem on Major League Baseball's radar screen until 2008. Dan Halem is baseball's senior vice president and general counsel for labor.
We had more bats breaking into two pieces and flying around the field and in some cases into the stands than in prior years. And it was an issue that was noticed by the media, by clubs, by players, and by the commissioner. And, the commissioner wanted to do something about it very quickly.
In other words, the problem wasn't that bats were breaking at all. It was that bats were splintering. And it came about not long after maple bats came on the scene. But while baseball noticed that, the league wasn't equipped to figure out why the bats were breaking the way they were. So Halem says they went looking for someone who could find the answer.
It's not that easy to find a wood scientist, so we did the easy thing. We called the federal government, really to try to get a recommendation, and lo and behold, the Forest Services Forest Products Laboratory said, we'll help you.
The lab is actually a campus of buildings in the heart of Madison. While there might be a basketball hoop in one of the parking lots, there is not a lot of recreational equipment in evidence. But inside an imposing granite edifice, Dave Kretschmann has about 24 baseball bats spread out on rolling carts and a conference table. Correction, 24 broken baseball bats.
I've been here for about 25 years, and our laboratory itself's been around for 100 years, so we know wood, and wood is good, as we say around here.
Kretschmann is a research general engineer with the Forest Products Lab. He heads the team Major League Baseball put together to look into why bats were splintering, or as he describes it, having multiple piece failures.
It comes down to the fact that the pitch is, a very fast pitch, very strong players, and wood can only take so much loading before it actually breaks. That's just the nature of any material, actually. You can load any material to failure. Bats will break, but what your goal is to keep them in one piece rather than have them separate and enter the field of play or go out into the stands.
So Kretschmann and his team, which included a Sun Prairie independent testing company, looked at broken bats, a lot of them. Every bat that was broken in the major leagues between July and September of 2008 came through his lab. And for a wood scientist, one key issue quickly became apparent, something called slope of grain. To explain, Kretschmann says to imagine the handle of a bat as a bunch of drinking straws.
It's strongest if the straws are going right up and down the barrel of the bat. But as they start to tip over to the side, wood is much weaker when it's loaded perpendicular to the grain or has a slope of grain in that handle. And so one of the things that you could really see when you spread all these bats out was that there was an issue with slope of grain in the handles of the bats that were breaking into multiple pieces.
Kretschmann says that was good because it could be addressed easily by having bat manufacturers pay closer attention to slope of grain. And that's what baseball required of the 30 companies that make bats used at the major league level. Since then, the number of multiple-piece failures has dropped by half. But there is another part of the equation, geometry. Handles are smaller, barrels larger, and bats less dense than they used to be. That is apparent underneath the stands at Fox City Stadium in Appleton, where the minor league Wisconsin Timber Rattlers are taking batting practice. Most of these players are not far removed from using metal bats in college, and hitting coach Dusty Rhodes says they're looking for any advantage they can get, which means light bats and big barrels.
They got to get a bat they can use. They got to be able to handle it because they have to be able to adjust when you have two strikes. So it's a difference in mental part of it and physical part of it. They've got to learn how to hit the ball in the sweet spot of a wooden bat, which is kind of tough sometimes.
And it's not likely to change, even when bat safety is figured in. Third baseman Greg Hopkins, who has dodged a few multiple-piece failures already this season, says he would rather have a lighter bat than one that's scientifically less likely to break.
And that goes to the whole feel aspect of the game. You want to have a bat that you can handle, and if it's going to be light, if that means it has to be lighter, then that's what you're gonna want to use.
But his teammate, left fielder T.J. Middlestead, says durability was a factor in choosing his bat, a maple model made by the Old Hickory Bat Company.
Yeah, the Old Hickories haven't broken. I went through 7 in the first 70 games, so that's not that many bats to break. They print the label on the grains, which leaves you one side to hit on, where if you hit it on the weak part of the wood between the grains, you see the half circles. That's softer, so if you hit it there, the wood won't break in half.
In the end, hitting coach Dusty Rhodes says regardless of the level, players believe that the best bat is the one with a lot of hits in it.
It's happened a lot of times in the big leagues where a guy will break a bat and doesn't have an extra bat sometimes, and somebody lets a guy borrow a bat. Next thing you know, he goes on a tear with that bat, so he changes bats. Once they get on a tear with a bat, it's like falling in love with a pair of shoes. You don't want to lose them.
That means in ballparks in Wisconsin and around professional baseball, some of the timber will go on rattling into the foreseeable future. For Lake Effect, I'm Mitch Tyke in Appleton.